This is Dr. Jerome Corsi, and today is Thursday. It's June 29th, 2023. Thank you for joining us here on thetruthcentral.com, thetruthcentral.com. We're doing a podcast every weekday morning. Let's take a look at the first story here, which is that the recession indicator, which has been indicating downturns since 1969, has now started again to be flashing and signaling recession. This is something I've been predicting. The downturn, the indicator is what they call a yield curve. It's an inverted yield curve. Now, the story here is essentially that the yield curve, long-term bond, so if you've got a bond going out for, say, 30 years, that bond is going to pay you more than a short-term bond because you're going to hold it longer. So the yield curve is essentially a relationship between the yields of related bonds, mostly the 10-year U.S. Treasury and a 2-year Treasury. So typically the shorter-term bonds have lower yields than longer-term bonds because the investors are taking more risk by locking up their money for longer. It's a very simple concept. Thus, the relationship is an upward sloping curve. Longer, it's upward sloping because the longer you go out on the bond, the more interest you're going to get. But sometimes the yield curve can invert, meaning long-term bonds drop below short-term yields, which is really a remarkable phenomenon. It doesn't happen very often. Historically, after the yield curve inverts, it takes about 15 months for the economy to officially enter a recession. This is what some of the veteran Wall Street observers are noting. Applying the same time, the current inversion, roughly 1 year ago, the economy should enter a recession, or could enter one, about October of this year. I think it actually is going to happen more like September. An inverted yield curve typically indicates that investors are moving money away from short-term bonds and into long-term bonds because they expect the near-term decline in economic activity will force the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates. Essentially, it's a sign that the market is becoming increasingly pessimistic about the economy's prospects. That's what happened on July 5th, 2022. The Treasury yield, the difference between the yield of a 10-year Treasury and a 2-year Treasury, inverted. It's remained the same ever since. So they're not going to go out as long on bonds because they think over time the Fed is going to have to lower interest rates, which means that essentially they see that the economic activity in the future is going to be so weak that the Fed is going to want to be stimulating the economy. Now, these are technical indicators that are watched by investors on Wall Street, but they tend to have a deeper meaning in terms of what's fundamentally going on with the economy. And the next story, I think you're going to see this next story is about Germany is facing a perfect storm. I've been talking about how the economics we're facing today are a combination of factors which are all working to amplify one another. In other words, we have a decline in commercial real estate in California because of the homelessness, the filth in the streets, the crime, the drugs. It's unsafe. You begin to see commercial people don't want to go to work downtown in San Francisco. Not safe. It's dangerous. They'd be happier working from home, which they did during the pandemic just fine. Commercial real estate is largely vacant. What happens then is the commercial real estate loans, when they have to be refinanced, begin defaulting. People walk away from mortgages. Hilton abandoned paying their mortgage, their loan on this beautiful hotel in Union Square, one of the more prominent hotels in San Francisco. And then fewer people in downtown, fewer people going to restaurants, fewer people shopping. Nordstrom starts closing. People start losing real estate value because, again, these inner city homes are not worth. People don't want to live in San Francisco. It's filthy. It's dangerous. Got all the crazies going around. The LGBT dominate. You've got a mayor who is woke. They've defunded the police. All these compound. And I'm pointing out that I think this is a planned, a determined shutdown of the economy on the neo-Marxism that we're going through right now. And the climate change is again part of the neo-Marxist deconstruction, the attempt to shut down capitalism. We're making a major ideological effort, which is not based on truth, but it is based on lies and even lying science and lying scientists, as we saw during COVID. So what's happening in Germany is that Germany's economy is now very heavily dependent on manufacturing, and it's slowing down. The manufacturing powerhouse that it once was based on cheap energy. When energy increases, because first of all, Russia cut off the supply of natural gas. Donald Trump had warned Europe it was too dependent on Russia's natural gas. He was right. When the EU imposed sanctions on Russia for the invasion of Ukraine, Russia cut off Europe's natural gas. So now Europe is accelerating the move to go green, which means they're putting in more wind, solar, battery. It is not working. It's extremely expensive. They're spending billions of dollars doing it. They're paying more for energy. And as a consequence, they cannot compete with the manufacturing. So in the Eurozone also, they have all these fiscal rules and all the essentially restrictions of the EU regulatory administrative structure, which also limits the ability to compete economically with countries like China, where slave labor is, you can use slave labor, it'll be just fine. The government supports it. And then Germany shut down its nuclear power plants. So Germany has self-destructed economically, at the same time is engaged in a very heavy support of the war in Ukraine, sending arms and money to Zelensky, who's fighting against Russia, which is another losing cause. Russia is not going to lose that war. And by the way, Russia seems to be taking over this Wagner force very fast. I think that it will become part of the Russian army very quickly. And I'm not sure what Wagner's long-term prospects are, but I wouldn't be wanting to bet on his long-term survival. At any rate, and there's lots of discussions about what our CIA was doing and whether Wagner was a double agent and whether he was trying to come over to the West or we were trying to get him to come over to the West. The bottom line is that Putin won. Putin will increase his strength, and Putin will become more iron-fisted in his determination to go after Ukraine. This counteroffensive that we are funding and providing military support to is failing, and it will not succeed. Russia has now moved nuclear weapons into Belarus and will use those nuclear weapons if, in fact, NATO accelerates its support of Zelensky. We are supporting the neo-Nazi factions. The West in Ukraine has been neo-Nazi since before World War II, German-oriented. The East has been Russian-oriented. That's why Russia dominates the eastern half of Ukraine. It's a divided country, but it's very resource-rich in terms of oil and other resources, grain. Russia will cut off the Black Sea, so that extension of the Black Sea access for exporting Ukrainian grain will not be there this season. And the economic pressure on Ukraine is tremendous, with the cities in ruin, the dams now being attacked, and flooding going on in massive areas. Ukraine is a desire about to become an ecological desire, and it could become a nuclear meltdown if the nuclear plants are not able to get sufficient water to cool their systems. Robert Kennedy Jr. yesterday was being interviewed in a news show, and I think he said something that was fundamentally important. They've tried to always ask him, if you're a Democratic candidate, even if you're not the candidate, will you support the candidate? Well, they always try to undermine. They tried to do that with Trump, too. They made Trump sign a pledge, if you recall, in 2016, that he would support the Republican candidate. This is all stupid politics to try to get reinforced party discipline. Well, Donald Trump is not a Republican. He really is not accepted by the Republican Party. And despite his credentials, Robert Kennedy Jr. is not supported by the Democratic Party. Robert Kennedy Jr. said outright that he would not pledge to support the Democratic candidate. And if it's Biden, I can guarantee you he won't support him. Robert Kennedy said, "This nation will begin to heal when the government starts telling the truth." And he pointed out that the lies started, he said, in Eisenhower when we had the U-2 incident. I'll go down. Eisenhower, Allen Dulles, who's head of the CIA, Allen Dulles convinced President Eisenhower to lie about it, and deny that the U-2 had been shot down. Russia set that up. Russia then brings Gary Power forward and shows everybody that Eisenhower lied. They did shoot down a U-2. It was a major revelation. That is by no means the first time government lied. But today, I think government lies all the time. Now, the whole first part of what I'm saying here is a couple things of importance. Number one, this is the Truth Central, and we're going for the truth. The only thing that's going to cure this right now is the truth. And I've been doing a lot with this. The book I want to emphasize right now, and I've got a lot of books coming out. I'm doing much more media. I'll be doing other radio and TV shows later today. TV is going to be very difficult because right now we are blocked even on Fox. You can't get any of the TV like you used to be able to get. I want to show this book, which is the coming global crash and how it sets up an historic gold rush. Okay, there's the book. Chris is showing it to you right now. And what it's linked to, I'm writing it with Dean Heskin, who is the president and CEO of Swiss America. Swiss America is one of our sponsors. Go to the Swiss America. Under the sponsors, look at this Walking Liberty $50 special. You can get these coins. They're very high in silver. They are circulated. They're not numismatic quality. They will come looking circulated, but they are silver. And you can get them for about the price of the silver in the coins. Get 250 of them in an introductory offer. Fill this out. It's consultative selling. Just did an interview with Dean that we'll put up on the website. We're going to put it out on the internet. If you've got your 401ks, your IRAs, and mutual funds, you're going to get hammered with the stock market. What we're facing now, I'm warning you, is a repeat of the 1929s. We're in that cycle. We had boom. So after the pandemic, everybody's getting government money. We had a strong economy from about 2013 through 2022, then started slowing down after the pandemic. It didn't really re-engage to the extent they expected it to after they locked us down for so long. What we're seeing now is that these economic forces are building for a global crash. And what happens, it'll be massive. Commercial real estate failing will cause banks to fail. The stock market could lose 10,000 points in a day. So you've got boom, then you've got crash. 1929, 1920s were roaring 20s. Everybody's in the speakeasies, drinking champagne. It was a party. Then 1929, the stock market crashed. People lost a lot of money. Following that was the Depression. Went through years of the 30s where people were in breadlines. They couldn't get employment. And World War II, which is what brought us out of the Depression. We're the same. We've had a boom. We're going to have a crash. And you won't be able to tell what day it's going to happen. But when it does, if you're in the stock market, you're going to lose a large portion of your savings, which are already under attack with this ESG investing, by the way, where you're getting less of a return on your mutual funds. So if you ride it out, you're going to lose. If you start thinking about, let's get some gold now, even if you don't have a lot to invest, Swiss America will show you how you can begin. And better to begin than not to have any gold at all, coming what we're going through. Now, you can say this is a commercial. I'm also giving you, I'm warning you what's coming. I'm not giving you economic advice. I'm not advising you what you should do in your individual situation. Talk to Swiss America about that. They're qualified. I'm just telling you what the economics look like, and they're not good. Chris, do you want to comment on that before we move on? I've got a lot I want to cover today.
The economics are always tough when in a recession, as many people will know. But again, I used to produce the Money Matters radio show. It ran for about 30 some odd years. I produced maybe 20, 25 of those years. And we always have experts talking about how precious metals, gold, silver, is technically recession proof. But again, we do insist that you talk to people who know more about this and who are actual experts. The thing is, though, explore, check it out, and it doesn't really hurt to take the introductory offer from Swiss America and pick those, get a little bit of that silver, see what it's like, and maybe talk to somebody.
In 1973, when we had the oil embargo, we had just come off the gold standard. In 1971, Nixon took us off the gold standard. We have only a fiat currency. There's nothing backing it. Gold was $35 an ounce. We went into a deep recession from Carter. By 1980, when Ronald Reagan was pulling us out of that recession, gold went from $35 an ounce to $843 an ounce. 2008, 2009, subprime real estate market collapsed. The real estate bubble burst. When we came out of that, investors went into gold. The gold by 2010 was $1,426 an ounce. Again, it had doubled, almost doubled. Then in the wake of the COVID, gold hit an all-time high of $2,000.74 on March 8th, 2022. What's going on now, you can see gold may double again. And I'm saying that the recession we're coming into is going to be very deep and very long. Prepare yourselves, get out of debt. We're into a very, very bizarre era right now of disinformation. The next couple of stories is Bud Light. The analysts are now saying Bud Light's going to lose about 25% of its market that is never coming back. Data gathered by Deutsche Bank suggests that 24% of Bud Light customers no longer purchase the brand, and 18% more are buying less of it. So taken together, the data shows Bud Light as a brand faces significant challenges, particularly with the older customers. And these are challenges that are not going to go away easily. So Bud Light actually fired the executives, these woke executives who put this transvestite with the stupid smile, transgender on a Bud Light, and it's now being called Butt Light as a consequence. Their sales have declined by 26.8%. And now the Modelo Especial, a Mexican beer, which was is now moving to be the number one leading brand in the United States, outpacing Bud Light, which fell to number two. This was a horrendous mistake, and it shows the American people are really not on the woke agenda. It's a bizarre agenda. And there's another very important story on Epic News today, the Epic Times, and there's an interview with a woman who's pointing out, her name is Bilek. She's an analyst, and she is looking at this gender affirming. What's going on, she's saying, is that this is not about having sympathy for the rights of the LGBT community. Oh, pity these two homosexuals. They're really just in love. Why are we abusing them? These two lesbians. Why are we so mean that we don't want them? That's the cover story. What he's saying is that all that is being utilized by a real move that aims at the transgender being the target, not just having it be for rights, but having it for fundamentally wanting to re-engineer human beings. So the goal is really for the transgender movement to create confusion over gender identity in order to move to transhumanism. Now, transhumanism is the concept that with our science, with artificial intelligence and advances in biology and genetics, we can advance to a superhuman being. But to get there, we have to get beyond male and female. We have to break down that dichotomy. We have to say that there's multi-sexes. It's a range. It's a spectrum. But now the problem is these moves to change pronouns, to have men and women sports, to deny what a woman is, to say men can have babies, all this nonsense has a plan behind it, which is to get starting with the kindergarten kids to think that sex, their whole idea of sex, that they're boys and girls, what they biologically know to be true, is going to be reconfigured into gender identity. Sex becomes gender, not sex. There's no men and women. There's all these genders, whatever you decide you are. Schizophrenic, really. And that then sets up where you can become transhuman. Now, the reason behind it, she says, and I think it's right, is that between the pharmaceutical advances in the medical industry, there's an enormous amount of money to be made here if, in fact, we can produce babies artificially so that all these confused genders can have families of some sort or other. Of course, they're not going to have God, they're not going to want to get married, they're not going to want to procreate, they're not going to want to follow through the fundamental laws that make us human beings and are wired into our nature. All those are going to be violated. They're going to put chips in us and have us have to, have the chip and the right chip, have the mark of the beast in order to transact business. And we go outside your 15-minute city, your electronics die, your social credit scores go to zero, and you become a non-person. This is a dystopian nightmare. And she's warning us that by allowing this transgender ideology to take hold, we are allowing ourselves to go down this path of a dystopian future in which we will be dissociated from God, dissociated from, and we're the COVID, we're dissociated from each other. We begin to communicate through technology rather than in-person communication. We're dissociated from our sources of food because we're not in the land anymore. We're not farming. They eliminate farming, and they produce artificial meat and artificial everything. They're going to say eat bugs, communicate by machines. The ultimate goal here is for a very small group of bizarre people to think that they can control the world with their machines, and they basically don't need the rest of us. And they want to normalize a transhuman agenda in which we as human beings become God and re-engineer ourselves to a higher species. This is an absolutely evil idea, and it will end up in nuclear war. It's going to end up in economic destruction. We're going through, again, the kind of, virtually no one, very few people who lived through World War II yet alive. And we will, we're already through the period of time where most of the people who experienced World War I are dead. The Civil War people are all dead. When I was a kid, there were still people alive who experienced the Civil War. But we're rapidly coming into a period of time where people don't know how insane the Nazi and communist ideologies were in the 1930s, and how those insane ideologies propagated World War II. Well, they will now today, in the cycle we're going through, propagate World War III. And it's coming to be almost inevitable. Chris, I'll give you a chance in a minute, but there's so much I want to cover today, and we're rapidly running out of time. So let me just keep speeding ahead. This next story on the Marco Polo. These Marco Polo people have published a 650-page book on Hunter Biden's laptop and the Biden family crimes. Now, today, you can get this book. You can go to the website. And I've got the link in here to the website where it says, read the report here. Now, you can print the report out. It appears to be on the website. It doesn't look like you can yet download it. That download doesn't seem to be working. But if you go onto it, I'm going to pull it here from the shelf to show it to you. Hold on a second. this is what the report looks like. I mean, it's a massive report. I'll show it to you here so you can see it. This is what the report looks like. It's massive. It's huge. And it's got in it a lot of the colored photographs. Some of which I don't have no idea what page I picked, but a lot of them are lewd. Of course, they're done so they're not as quite as offensive as they would be otherwise. But this report lists all the crimes that the Biden family have committed. So it has a list of crimes. I think there's a total of about 459 crimes, 140 business crimes, 191 sex crimes, 128 drug crimes. And each of the crimes is listed. They have when, the date, where, New York City, etc., who was involved, and what crime was violated. And then they detail all the things from the laptop which validate these crimes. All the evidence of these crimes is in the laptop. And Hunter Biden was, of course, on the cloud, and he had iPhones, etc., and they linked to all of his devices. So the laptop ends up having all the photographs of his iPhone, has everything in it, and he left that laptop in a service repair shop. And the New York Times is finally admitting today in an article that these whistleblowers are telling the truth. Now, I think the time is ending for the Bidens. I think the Democratic Party is realizing that Biden has become a liability, and the whole ramping up of the public's awareness that we have, in fact, a president who is senile, clearly experiencing some signs of dementia, and is, the family has been in corruption from the very beginning. From the time he was in the Senate, he's making money as a senator from Delaware for the family. And I want to get this report out and to have some ideas as to how to get this on the agenda. I'll hopefully be introducing it next week. And I think we're going to press this case. Now we've got the information. We've got it presented in a format where you can get a hold of it. I'm going to make it more widely known to get a hold of this book. I think once we get this book out there in a massive way, and here it is right here, huge book, huge report. I'm going to find out if there's something we can do to get this out there. If we can, this is going to be extremely detrimental to Biden, but we've got to stop this lying. We've got to stop this woke nonsense. And Chris, if you'll just show people see the book, that's what it's about. And the link is there on the website today. And we're going to be doing much more with this starting next week. Now, Chris, if we also show, I want to show the next book that I'm writing that's coming out next. And the first one is this one, The Truth About, I covered it yesterday, covered a big story yesterday about how the sun heats the earth and the sun is in a maximum right now. The book is called The Truth About Energy, Global Warming, and Climate Change. I'm in complete agreement with Robert Kennedy. This is the truth central. My books are the truth about. The only thing that's going to cure this problem is the truth. Now, Chris, show the other one, would you? The second one. And the second one shows the one that's just finished editing, and it's going into print now. It's called The Truth About Neo-Marxism, Cultural Maoism, and Anarchy. What we're experiencing right now in the woke didn't happen by accident. This has been being architected for over 100 years. It has been a determination of the Marxists to destroy capitalism. Capitalism is the most productive economic system that's ever been invented by human beings, and it produces great wealth. It's not perfect, but it produces abundance. People are eating. You can have a middle class. We have a way to have people advance themselves. And with our original government structure, which is not being taught in the schools anymore, of limited government, the opportunity to succeed was not restricted by government agencies. Today, we've got a massive bureaucracy that is restricting freedom. But what the Marxists decided to do was, in the 1840s, they thought the workers of the world would revolt and they could eliminate private property by ending capitalism, let the states run everything. Well, that means the power is going to go in the hands of a very small number of people. They knew it. Marxism has always been a lie. It's a mind warping. It's like a malware in your mind. If you become indoctrinated with Marxism, you've got a bad program running your computer, and it'll produce outputs that are meaningless. So the workers of the world didn't revolt. Labor unions were created. Management began sharing wealth with the workers. We built a middle class, especially after World War II. But the structure was in place to do this. So then the decision was, well, we have to attack the culture of capitalism. And that's where the cultural Maoists came along, cultural revolution. We are in the middle of a cultural revolution. This is a Maoist cultural revolution. Our government is dominated by Maoists right now. Black Lives Matter was a Maoist organization. It was not Stalinist. It was not Lenin. They were not organizing to get the workers to revolt. They were trying to destroy the culture, destroy God, take God out of the schools, have marriages break up, have a sexual revolution, increase the use of drugs. All these things succeeded. Frankfurt School, I write about this extensively in the book. And with postmodernism, they don't believe there is truth. They think that they can create truth. John Lennon, let's reimagine without police. Police are so awful. They arrest minorities. Let's imagine a world without police. Well, a world without police is anarchy. Because fundamentally, you cannot erase human nature. And, biblically, they want to get rid of the Bible because the Bible says we're a fallen species. And this is a religious, spiritual experience that we have here. It's not a material experience. They want it to be completely material, within their control. And the Bill Gateses of the world want to be the evil masters, the Saurons, the ones who are the rulers of this deep dystopian future they want us to live in. Now, if you think this is extreme, it's not. Look around. Look at all the things you're being told. Eat bugs. Pretty soon, the price of meat is going to go up dramatically. Chris, now is a good time to comment, and then we'll do the final story.
We've talked about how people like Bill Gates and even Elon Musk have talked about the idea of implanting chips in people, and we've had World Economic Forum types work on social credit scores. You have John Kerry flying around in his private jet telling us we have to stop our carbon emissions. And as you covered a few days ago, the World Economic Forum wants to cut car use down, or cars themselves down, by 75%. The idea is societal control. And like you said, keep us in these 15-minute so-called smart cities, keep us in the little bubbles we have, and everything will be fine as we'll use the term elites, reap all the rewards. They eat the real meat. We eat the 3D printed meat.
Yeah, its speed just jumped way up as soon as I closed all the browsers. Went right up.
And you sound fantastic, by the way, again.
Yeah, it just went right up again. As soon as I have to close all, you're right, I've got to close all the browsers. That's what does it. It went way up as soon as I closed everything.
Yeah.
Did we lose any of the previous show, or we got it okay? Or
no, the last show was good. I would have said something
up till now.
Nope. It just started when you pull out the book.
Okay, let's go back to full screen. I'll show the book and read. I'll wrap up from here. Okay. I want to read a paragraph of this book on these points. This is the Psychology of Totalitarianism. If you can see it, it's by Matthias Desmet, Desmet. We're probably going to have a little section of this website and books I'm recommending, but this one's extremely good. I'm going to read a paragraph. It says, totalitarianism and technocracy, not technology, technocracy. This whole idea of a governmental structure, or a formal technological society combined with totalitarianism like to present themselves as the pinnacle of rationality and science. The technocratic paradise will make the population happy and healthy, or at least offer the greatest chance of achieving this. With subcutaneous sensors, every biological change can be registered and reported. Anyone showing signs of illness can be immediately examined and receive adequate treatment. In order to achieve this in an efficient way, everything has to be permanently and monotonously exposed to the artificial light of monitoring and government control. The fact that the human being is like a flower that only blooms when it can enjoy the shade of privacy once in a while is of minor importance in a technocratic worldview. Anyone who refuses to go along with the system lacks civic sense, considers himself more important than the collective. Your health is no longer your personal business because some diseases are contagious. However, even within an objectifying biological reductionist perspective, it has been clear for decades that too much government control is harmful to health itself. To use the example of a viral infection, control leads to stress, and stress in its turn to a greatly reduced physical resistance to viral infections. Acting on the basis of a biological reductionist analysis is effectively a recipe for failure. Even on a purely physical level, one cannot understand the course of a viral infection on the basis of the mechanistic processes seen through the small ring light of a microscope. The whole psychological, sociological, and economic context plays an important role. That's the point, is that we are human beings. We're not machines. And we're not going to perfect ourselves by making us into machines. All you're going to do is get another Hitler, another Nazi regime, another totalitarian system in which human freedom is crushed. Let's go to this final story, which is about China. It's Gordon Chang. Now, I've known Gordon Chang for a long time, and Gordon Chang is, I think, a brilliant analyst of China. And he has written many, many things about China, which I've admired. He's now got an article on the Gateway. This is on the Gate. What is it? Gatestone? I'll just pull it up. The Gatestone Institute. He is saying that coming across the southern border, there's a lot of Chinese. And he's saying Chinese migrants are entering the United States on foot at the southern border. A lot of them are seeking a better life, etc. But there's also a group that are Chinese military coming to commit acts of sabotage. What Gordon Chang is saying is that China is preparing to take over Taiwan, and they want to fight the battle on U.S. soil, so that the military fighters that are coming in can link up with Chinese agents already in place in the United States or Chinese diplomats. So you've got PLA, which is the People's Liberation Army fighters, some as many as 5,000, maybe 10,000 in the United States is all. They're shock troops. On the first day of the war in Asia, when China moves to take over Taiwan, these immigrants will take down America's power lines, poison reservoirs, assassinate officials, start wildfires, spread pathogens, and create terror by bombing shopping malls and supermarkets. The saboteurs will almost certainly attack American military bases. China has been probing sensitive installations. Chinese agents posing as tourists have, for instance, intruded into bases, including the Army's Fort Wainwright in Fairbanks, Alaska. When the Chinese Communist Party starts its war against Taiwan and the United States, Americans should expect that the Chinese sleeper agents now in America will hit targets like gas stations and military-aged Chinese now crossing our border will be mobilized for assassination attacks and assaults on U.S. military bases. Richard Fisher, International Assessment and Strategic Center to Gatestone, said in June 17, 2023, the next war in Asia will almost certainly be fought on U.S. soil. Immigrants make countries strong. Almost all the Chinese immigrants crossing the southern border will certainly contribute to American society. However, some are coming to wage war against the United States. This is a important warning. And what we have in the United States government right now is a government that does not believe in America, does not believe in our values, does not believe in defending the country. And I think a lot of the destruction we're experiencing is intentional. And certainly the economic steps that we are taking are the exact wrong ones. We could easily turn this around. And Donald Trump has said as much. Donald Trump did turn it around. But the deep state, these embedded neo-Marxists and cultural Maoists, the woke, that control our institutions, are determined as Satan is determined, I mean that literally, to destroy America. Chris, final comments before we wrap up.
Antony Blinken was talking with the Council on Foreign Relations at an event yesterday. He claims that it's not in America's best interest to contain the CCP amid all these tensions and what's going on. If you'd like to hear a comment from him, I will play that for you.
Go ahead, play it.
You got it. Okay, here we go. This is Antony Blinken speaking in front of...
and who is Antony Blinken? Tell people.
Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, of course, of the U.S. He is talking about how... He was going on about how U.S. and China should... the U.S. policy toward China, he says, should be peaceful coexistence. Now, we've heard that before, but this is what he's saying. He's also saying we shouldn't be containing them. Here's a quick comment.
From China's perspective, no surprise to people here, is that our purpose is to contain them, to hold them down, to hold them back, globally and economically. And the fact of the matter is it's not. And it's also not in our interest to do that. China sees us as being engaged in decoupling. The argument that I made to our counterparts is that if you actually look at what's happening and what's happened, the facts belie that assertion. Our trade with China last year reached the highest level ever. We had more foreign direct investment going to China last year than in any year since 2014.
The decoupling is happening because the American people are sick and tired of it. And the consequences here, biblically, we're going to judge the current woke by the fruit of the tree. And if the fruit of the tree is naked pride marches and naked, drag story hours, I don't think the American mothers want their children made into the perverts that, for the same reason that in ancient Rome, the mothers got sick of their children being made into perverts, and Christianity came throughout the pagan gods and under Constantine and the Roman Empire. For the same reason, these people produce disgusting, anti-human results. It's an anti-human depopulationist movement, and it's right now in intellectual control of the United States of America, and that's a pretty frightening reality. That's what I'm writing and working to make clear to everyone, and to do whatever I can do, whatever limited I can do, in order to make people, instead of being woke, be awake, wake up. Because what's happening to you will be you're marching yourselves into your own slavery by acquiescing with this woke. And the reason Bud Light is doing it, they don't want to be politically incorrect. So they say, oh, well, let's just embrace this. It'll go away. So what? Let's be fuzzy towards LGBT. So who cares? Yeah. Well, when they get your child in kindergarten and begin to say, get gender uncertainty in your child, may be different.
And it goes even further than that. They let children identify as animals or meow and use cat litters in class just to appease them. The idea is to the Marxists used to try to find malcontents amongst the regular population, and now we're not only trying to groom. Well, the alphabet agenda is not only trying to groom, but the Marxist agenda is trying to groom new malcontents, people who are so upset at society for not paying attention to the fact that they want to be called a dog or a cat, or their pronouns are being violated. This is going to be a new set of very angry and probably miseducated, not probably, but definitely miseducated young people who are going to make it easier for the powers that be to stick chips in their necks and to control them via social credit scores.
Well, they won't have any education because they won't be taught math or reading. They won't be taught fundamental skills. They won't be taught true climate science. They won't understand the impact of the sun. They won't know chemistry. They won't know physics. And so these people will be very easy to lie to. Let's wrap it up. We've gone a little bit over time today. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Today is Thursday. It's June 29th, 2023. In the end, God always wins. God will win here too. And I think in the spirit of 2 Chronicles 7:14, we need to collectively, all of us, myself included, get down on our knees and ask God's repentance, to ask God's forgiveness for we want to repent our ways because we allowed this to happen. We didn't fight hard enough to keep God in the schools. We didn't fight hard enough to oppose Roe v. Wade. We're killing babies. Any society that kills babies is on the way to extinction. Not distinction, extinction. Distinction in its evil ways. This will end. God will not permit this to go on forever. The consequences may be severe if we don't take responsibility for it and ask for God's forgiveness. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. We're broadcasting every weekday. Joining us on Truth. God bless.